Understanding the fear of failure. Fear of failure is one of the most powerful forces that holds human beings back from living their true potential. It stops dreams before they are born, silences talents before they can be shared, and traps countless souls in a cycle of hesitation and regret. This fear creeps into the mind quietly, whispering lies. What if you lose? What if you embarrass yourself? What if people laugh at you? What if you're simply not enough? And because we listen to these whispers, many of us never even take the first step toward our destiny. But the truth is, failure itself is not your enemy. The fear of failure is. Failure, on its own, is simply an event, a temporary outcome. It's feedback, not finality. It's a stepping stone, not a tombstone. Every great invention, every great achievement, every life-changing success story in history carries the fingerprints of failure. Think about it. Thomas Edison tested thousands of times before the light bulb shone. The Wright brothers crashed countless times before they touched the sky. Even the most celebrated leaders, entrepreneurs, and artists faced rejection, ridicule, and defeat before they rose to greatness. They didn't escape failure. They embraced it. So why does failure scare us so deeply? At its core, the fear of failure is tied to ego and perception. We fear being judged. We fear being seen as weak, incompetent, or unworthy. We fear that failing means we are a failure. But that's the illusion. Failure is not who you are. It's something you experience. And once you separate your identity from your results, you begin to understand that failure is not the end of you. It's the beginning of your growth. In fact, failure is evidence that you tried, that you stepped out of your comfort zone, that you were brave enough to take a chance while others stayed safe in their doubts. The person who never fails is not the person who succeeds. It's the person who never tries. Think of a child learning to walk. Do they fall? Yes. Do they stumble? Absolutely. But does anyone call that child a failure? No. We cheer, we encourage, and we celebrate each small attempt because we know falling is part of learning. Yet when we grow older, we forget this truth. We become so worried about falling in front of others that we stop trying altogether. Here is the spiritual awakening. Life is not about never failing. It is about learning to rise every time you do. Every failure carries within it a hidden gift, the gift of wisdom, resilience, and strength. Without it, growth is impossible. You cannot climb higher without stumbling on the way. You cannot shine brighter without walking through darkness first. So understand this clearly. Fear of failure is nothing more than a mental prison. Break free from it, and you will discover that failure is not the destroyer of dreams. It is the doorway to them. Changing the meaning of failure. Failure is not the end of the road. It is part of the road. Yet most people treat it as a dead end, a sign that they should quit, a mark of shame that defines them. The real shift begins when you change the meaning of failure in your mind, when you no longer see it as a curse but as a teacher, as a stepping stone, as feedback from life itself. Then failure transforms from something to be feared into something to be embraced. Think of how a child learns to walk. They fall dozens of times, sometimes with tears, sometimes with frustration. But never once do they think, maybe walking isn't for me. Maybe I should just give up. No, they rise again and again until walking becomes natural. Falling is not failure, it's training. In the same way, every stumble you face in life is training you for the strength, wisdom, and resilience you'll need to carry success. History is filled with examples of people who changed the meaning of failure. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper job because he was told he had no imagination. Imagine if he had believed that failure defined him. There would be no Disney empire today. Oprah Winfrey was once demoted from her job as a news anchor because she was deemed unfit for television. But she did not let that define her. She let it refine her. Today, she is one of the most influential women in the world. The difference between those who quit and those who rise is not luck, talent, or resources. It is perspective. They saw failure not as a wall, but as a doorway. The truth is, failure carries lessons that success cannot teach. Success makes you confident, but failure makes you wise. Success makes you celebrated, but failure makes you resilient. Success shows you what works, but failure shows you what doesn't, and both are equally important. The most dangerous life is not the one filled with failures, it's the one where you never dared enough to fail, because that life is a life unlived. So how do you change the meaning of failure? First, separate it from your identity. Failure is an event, not a person. You are not a failure because you failed. You are a human being on a journey of growth. Second, ask the right question. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can this teach me? Third, reframe it as progress. Every failure is proof that you are moving, that you are stretching, that you are daring to live beyond the safety of your comfort zone. When you begin to see failure this way, it loses its power to paralyze you. Instead of shrinking in fear, you step forward with courage. Instead of being ashamed of your past, you use it as fuel for your future. You realize that every mistake, every rejection, every defeat is not pushing you backward. It is pushing you forward toward a higher version of yourself. So never fear failure. Redefine it. Embrace it. Let it shape you into the person capable of holding the success you are destined for. Because in truth, failure is not the opposite of success. It is the pathway to it. Breaking free from limiting patterns of fear. Fear of failure is not just an emotion. It becomes a pattern. It is like a cycle that plays on repeat in the mind. You try once, stumble, and instead of learning from it, you tell yourself, I'm not capable. That thought grows into a belief, and that belief shapes your actions. Soon you are avoiding risks, avoiding opportunities, and avoiding growth. You create a small safe box around your life and convince yourself it's better to stay comfortable than to risk failure again. This is how fear builds invisible chains that hold you back. But here is the awakening truth. These patterns are illusions. They are not made of reality. They are made of stories you tell yourself. Every time you say, I'm not good enough, or what if I fail again? You are reinforcing a story that does not belong to your true self. You were not born afraid. You were not born doubting. You learned these patterns from the world, and because you learned them, you can unlearn them. Breaking free begins with awareness. Notice the voice in your head that tells you to stop, to shrink, to give up. That voice is not your higher self, it is your fear. Once you recognize it, you can choose differently. You can say, this voice does not define me. I am more than my fear. I am more than my past mistakes. Every time you interrupt the cycle, you weaken the chains. The next step is to replace those limiting beliefs with empowering truths. Instead of saying, I always fail, declare, every step, even failure, brings me closer to success. Instead of saying, people will laugh at me, affirm, their opinions do not define my destiny. Instead of believing, I'm not enough, proclaim, I am worthy, I am capable, I am ready. These may sound simple, but spoken consistently, they rewire the mind, reprogram your energy, and create a new reality. Action is also ascent. Bio. Fear thrives in hesitation. The longer you wait, the louder the fear becomes. But the moment you take even a small step forward, you weaken its grip. Progress, no matter how small, is proof to yourself that you are stronger than your fear. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence builds courage. Remember this, failure is temporary, but regret is permanent. You can recover from mistakes, you can rise from setbacks, you can rebuild after loss, but you can never recover the time wasted hiding in fear. That's why breaking free is not just important, it's urgent. Life is passing every second, and each moment you choose fear over courage is a moment of your destiny delayed. You were created with potential beyond imagination. The universe did not bring you here to live small, safe, and silent. It brought you here to grow, to stretch, to shine. Fear is only a shadow, and shadows disappear the moment you walk into the light. The light is your courage, your faith, your decision to rise no matter how many times you stumble. So break the cycle, break the story, break the chains. You are not your fear. You are the one who was born to rise above it, choosing courage and creating a new reality. At the heart of overcoming the fear of failure lies one simple but life-changing truth. You always have a choice. You may not control every circumstance, every challenge, or every outcome, but you do control your response. You can choose to stay trapped in fear, or you can choose to step into courage. You can choose to keep replaying the old stories of defeat, or you can choose to write a new story of strength. This choice is what creates your reality. Courage does not mean you will never feel afraid. It means you decide to act even while fear is present. Fear says, "Don't try, you might fail." Courage answers, "I'll try anyway, because failure is only a step toward growth." Fear says, "People will judge you." Courage responds, "Their judgment is none of my business. My destiny is greater than their opinion." Fear tries to paralyze you with doubt, but courage reminds you that action, not perfection, is what builds success. Choosing courage means choosing to see failure differently. Instead of seeing it as proof of weakness, you see it as evidence of effort. Instead of seeing it as the end of the road, you see it as the bend in the road. Instead of letting it discourage you, you let it shape you. Every courageous choice rewires your mind to expect growth instead of defeat. Over time, fear loses its grip, and courage becomes your natural state. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you decided today to choose courage over fear. How many dreams would you pursue? How many skills would you master? How many opportunities would you embrace? The future you desire is not waiting in some distant place. It is waiting in the choices you make today. Each small decision to act in courage creates ripples that build into waves of transformation. Remember, failure itself cannot stop you. Quitting can. Fear itself cannot destroy your dream. Surrender can. But as long as you rise every time you fall, as long as you keep moving forward, you are unstoppable. Greatness is not built in the absence of failure. It is built on the foundation of it. Every lesson, every setback, every struggle becomes the very material that shapes your strength. Choosing courage also means trusting the process of life. Trust that the universe, God, or your higher self has placed within you everything you need to overcome. Trust that every challenge is shaping you into the person you need to become to hold your destiny. Trust that the path, even when filled with setbacks, is leading you exactly where you are meant to go. So today, make a conscious choice. Choose courage over fear. Choose action over hesitation. Choose faith over doubt. When you do, the fear of failure will no longer control you. It will fuel you. It will remind you that you are alive, that you are daring, that you are reaching for something greater. The moment you choose courage, you stop being a prisoner of fear and become the creator of your reality. And that reality is limitless. As we arrive at the end of this journey, let us reflect on what we have uncovered together. Fear of failure is not an external enemy. It is an internal illusion. It thrives in the shadows of doubt and insecurity, convincing us that mistakes are the end, when in truth, they are the beginning. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the very path that leads to success. Think of every story of greatness. Behind every invention, every breakthrough, every masterpiece lies a trail of attempts, errors, and setbacks. The people we admire most are not those who never failed. They are those who refuse to let failure define them. They turn pain into power, rejection into redirection, and defeat into determination. And so can you. The first step is understanding. You now know that fear of failure is not a reflection of your potential. It is simply a habit of the mind, a false alarm meant to keep you safe in your comfort zone. But safety does not create transformation. Comfort does not create destiny. Growth begins the moment you step into the unknown. The second step is reframing failure itself. Every setback is feedback. Every mistake is a message. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Begin asking, what is this trying to teach me? That question alone shifts your perspective from victim to creator, from powerless to powerful. Failure is no longer a punishment. It becomes preparation. The third step is resilience. Understand this. Failure is temporary, but quitting makes it permanent. If you fall 7 times, rise 8. If the door closes, knock again or build a new door. Resilience is not about avoiding pain, but about refusing to let pain stop you. And each time you rise, your spirit grows stronger, your courage grows bolder, and your vision grows clearer. And finally, the greatest step, choosing courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear. It is the voice that says, yes, I am afraid, but I will not let fear control me. Every courageous choice chips away at the chains of fear until you discover you were free all along. Courage awakens the truth that you are greater than your failures, stronger than your doubts, and destined for more than you can imagine. So, my friend, the question is no longer whether you will fail, it is whether you will let failure stop you. And the answer is clear. You will rise. You will keep moving. You will transform fear into fuel and failure into wisdom. Today is your turning point. Release the weight of fear, embrace the lessons of failure, and step boldly into the life you were created to live. Remember this truth. You are not defined by your failures. You are defined by your courage to rise beyond them. And once you choose courage, no fear of failure can ever hold you back again.